some of this is actually potentially hangover from the last two climate COPs. When we think of what happened with Glasgow, the Glasgow Pact occurring at the very last moment of the conference and having criticism that it didn't do enough. And then even this just recent COP27 that I was in Egypt that I was able to attend, culminating with the successful landmark agreement on loss and damage for developing nations. I think part of the criticism that came from those African countries essentially was related to funding. And to a certain extent, it's a fair criticism. I think the letdown of Glasgow put pressure for later climate conferences to actually deliver huge agreements, huge landmark successes in terms of cooperation frameworks moving forward. The loss and damage one in COP27 was a huge one. And so looking at what happened at COP15 in terms of biodiversity, it can also be viewed the same way. But sometimes, because the focus is on making sure that we deliver such a huge deal and to ensure that the conference was successful in that regard, some of the nuances don't get filled out. And partly that's just because of timing and how much it takes to actually get an agreement done, that the criticism, okay, well, how are we going to do these objectives and goals that is set out in the 30 by 30 agreement, for example, or 30 by 30 deal, in terms of funding. And certainly for developing nations that don't necessarily have access to a lot of funding mechanisms to achieve their objectives, in this case, in terms of achieving the biodiversity goals, or even the other climate COP in terms of achieving funding for adaptation mitigation. So yes, the devil is certainly always in the details, but it's a landmark deal. It's a huge step forward. But now the work has to begin in terms of implementation, in terms of securing full funding, and in terms of actually looking towards projects that get these goals done.